One of the biggest selling albums of all time was Fortified by a #1 smash written by a guitar virtuoso while shopping in an appliance store in New York. The story of Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you subscribe below, do that right now. You'll be the first to see our daily videos celebrating the rock and roll era. Click the bell so you never miss out. And if you want more videos and other great benefits, make sure to click on our Patreon link. Now, in the mid-70s, roommates John Ilsley and David Knopfler were struggling musicians sharing a flat in London. They wanted to put a band together. David introduced John to his older brother Mark Knopfler, who was performing in local pubs. Ilsley recalls the first time that he saw Mark Knopfler was shortly after Mark's marriage had failed and he needed a place to stay. A homeless Mark Knopfler was lying on the couch, their couch, asleep. He had a guitar plopped over his overstretched legs and a littering of cigarette butts and spilled coffee on the floor beneath him, the garbage of future greatness, as it were. It may not have seemed apparent at that moment, but Mark Knopfler would later be referred to as a virtuoso, named as one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Honored in 2012, Ivor Novello Lifetime Achievement Award. 2018, he received the Living Legend Award at the Scottish Music Awards. Even the asteroid 28151, Mark Knopfler is named after it. The Knopfler brothers and Ilsley hooked up with drummer Pick Withers to form the group Cafe Racers. In '77, the band changed the name to Dire Straits, and they recorded a demo tape of material that featured a promising rough track written by Mark Knopfler. It was titled Sultans of Swing. Dire Straits were rejected by several record labels, including label titan MCA, before they were signed by Vertigo Records in the UK. Sultans of Swing began getting airplay in the UK and attracted the attention of Warner Brothers Records, who signed them to a US deal after some dissenting opinions on the group's commercial appeal. Dire Straits opened for Talking Heads on an extensive tour and then released their self-titled debut LP in 1978. It wasn't long before Dire Straits headlined a North American tour of their own, and they sold out every venue that they played. Sultans of Swing was a smoking hit, surrounded by the disco-heavy radio playlists of the late 70s, shooting all the way to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. Ironically, Mark Knopfler originally thought his composition was dull. It wasn't until he bought his first Stratocaster guitar in '77 and played the guitar parts with his new Strat that he was really excited about the track. In Mark's words, the Strat made Sultans of Swing really come alive. Dire Straits and their magnetic frontman, Mark Knopfler, with his gritty earnestness, generated a massive following that reached platinum status in virtually every country around the world. The band would release Communique in '79, making movies in 1980, which included the amazing Tunnel of Love. I love that song. And then came Love Over Gold in '82. Each of these achieved either platinum or gold status. They were rockin' steady with a solid foundation of strong record sales, box office gross, and critical acclaim. The popularity of Dire Straits, though, would rocket to epic proportions with their fifth offering, the blockbuster LP, Brothers in Arms, delivered in 1985. Brothers in Arms became one of the biggest selling albums ever recorded, moving more than 30 million copies, and it was also on the forefront of cutting-edge recording technology. Although pressed on vinyl and cassette, Brothers in Arms was one of the first albums to be released on compact disc. Brothers in Arms was also one of the first albums that was recorded on a Sony 24-track digital tape machine. The decision to transition to digital recording was spawned by Mark Knopfler's constant pursuit for better sound quality. Mark was always willing to spend money to use the best equipment that was available. Before Dire Straits began to record at the Montserrat studio, Mark Knopfler had written all of the songs for Brothers in Arms and rehearsed them with his bandmates. The studio lineup consisted of course, Knopfler on lead guitar, John Ilsley on bass, Alan Clark with piano and Hammond B3 organ duties, and Guy Fletcher, who was new to the band, playing a synth rig that consisted of a huge new Yamaha DX1, a couple of Roland keyboards, and a synclavier. Terry Williams was the band's then permanent drummer, and the group added coveted session player Omar Hakim to re-record some of the drum parts. The recording studio was very compact, only 20 feet by 25 feet, but the sound of the room was supreme because of the Neve 8078 soundboard. Brothers in Arms was produced by Mark Knopfler and Neil Dorfsman, who was a Grammy Award winner that engineered records for Paul McCartney, Sting, and Bruce Hornsby. Lauded for its amazing sound, Brothers in Arms received a Grammy Award for Best Engineered Album Non-Classical in 1986 and was recognized again for its sonic excellence on the 20th anniversary version of the album, released in 2006, winning the Grammy for Best Surround Sound Album. The first single released from Brothers in Arms was So Far Away. I love that song. It was a Knopfler-crafted tune about the demands of travel, the necessary evil of nonstop touring, splitting up families and loved ones to bring home the bacon and maximize an artist's success in the brutally competitive music business. Knopfler and Dire Straits toured extensively during the early to mid-'80s. But So Far Away isn't autobiographical. It's simply sharing a longing that anyone with a busy lifestyle can relate to. The simulated guitar riff is probably the most memorable part of So Far Away, but it isn't really a conventional guitar riff. The riff is actually created by the synclavier by Ned, N-E-D, a synthesizer that is triggered by a special controller guitar built by Rudy Pence's Music Stop. One can play the instrument as a regular guitar or blend the guitar sound with the sounds of the synthesizer. During the band's live performances, Knopfler used a Schecter Strat to play So Far Away on the Brothers in Arms tour in '85 and '86. So Far Away climbed to number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 3 at Adult Contemporary, number 20 in the UK, number 22 in Australia, and it broke the top 10 throughout Scandinavia. It's a laid-back song with Knopfler's signature cool baritone. It just always draws you in. I love his voice. The excitement for Brothers in Arms really took off, though, after the release of the second single, Money for Nothing, a track that was just riveting for its realism that was also the culprit of controversy. The lead character in Money for Nothing is a real person that worked in the hardware department of a retail store in New York that Knopfler was shopping in. While shopping for an exercise machine, Knopfler was, eavesdropping on a conversation between the hardware delivery man and a fellow worker while they were watching MTV playing on the screens of multiple television sets on display inside the store. As Knopfler tells it, the guy is literally singing the song he wrote when Mark was actually in the store. Knopfler borrowed a bit of paper, he sat down within earshot, and he actually began writing down that conversation that became Money for Nothing. I wanted to use a lot of the language that the guy actually used when I heard him, recounted Knopfler, because it was more real. The conversation between the two meatheads, as it were, as Knopfler called them, included some hilarious lines that are now in the pop culture vernacular, along with homophobic and racial slurs that many in the media condemned. While watching a video on MTV, the song's narrator is making commentary born from jealousy and ignorance, implying that rock stars make the big bucks doing nothing but looking pretty and playing a guitar.
Look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it.
Now look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it. You play the guitar on your MTV. That ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for nothing and chicks for free.
Money for nothing and your chicks for free.
Money for Nothing was a massive hit. For 3 weeks, the song sat on the top of the Billboard Hot 100 and the Top Rock Tracks chart. It was also a #1 single in Canada. It was #4 in the UK and Australia. Now, despite the song's mega success, Knopfler received a lot of flack about his lyrics. Like I said, Various publications expressed their objection to the song's lyrics, particularly the gay slur, and the unedited version. The unedited version was banned from the airways in several countries, including parts of Canada. But Knopfler defended what he scribed because of its authenticity. He didn't want to censor the attested dialogue, no matter how crude or politically incorrect. To go deeper on Knopfler's staunch integrity, it's important to point out that long before he became a rock star, Mark Knopfler actually studied journalism at Harlow College in Leeds, and he was a junior reporter for the Yorkshire Evening Post. In an interview with Uncut magazine, Knopfler claimed that his journalistic experience fed into Money for Nothing. It's very interesting. Actually, it's a great interview. Maybe I'll link to it. He said, and I quote, "I was reporting verbatim what that particular guy thought of musicians," end of quote. He said, "I transcribed his words there and then. He was a meathead. To him, being a rock star was easy, hence the line, 'That ain't working.'"
Oh, that ain't working. That's the way you do it. Get your money for...
To remedy any prohibition and make it more palatable for radio airplay, Warner Brothers manufactured a version that removed the controversial lyrics, and it cut the length in half from the 8-minute, 26-second album version to a promo single edit, just over 4 minutes. Money for Nothing begins with, of course, that famous vocal fade-in by Sting singing, "I Want My MTV." A lyric that MTV obviously loved. The songwriting credits are shared between Mark Knopfler and Sting. Sting admitted that his only compositional contribution was the "I Want My MTV" line. Which, of course, followed the melody from his song "Don't Stand So Close to Me," the 1980 hit from Sting and the Police. Sting used to come to Montserrat to go windsurfing. That's what John Ilsley recalled. He said that he came up for supper at the studio. We played him Money for Nothing, and he turned around and said, "You've done it this time, you bastards." Mark said if he thought it was so good, why didn't he add something to the song? And that's how Sting came to be involved in the actual track. End of quote. Knopfler's lyrics and delivery of the line, "That's the way you do it, you play the guitar on your MTV," was so cool, so collected. It's just clever and iconic. It instantly became the classic line of an era of classic lines.
That's the way you do it. You play the guitar on your MTV.
A permanent part of our culture then and now, it's the perfect demonstration, in my opinion, of the unique timbre of Mark Knopfler's fluid and just lulling voice. A voice that can't be repeated. It's both charismatic and inviting.
Banging on the bongos like a chimpanzee. Oh, that ain't working.
So during the recording of Money for Nothing, the signature sound of Knopfler's guitar may have been enhanced by a happy accident of microphone placement. Knopfler was using his Gibson Les Paul going through a Laney amplifier while setting up the guitar amplifier microphones in an effort to get that ZZ Top sound Knopfler wanted. Guitar tech Ron Eve, who was in the control room, heard the amazing sound before co-producer Neil Dorsman was finished arranging the mics. He said, and I quote, "One mic was pointing down at the floor, another was not quite on the speaker, another was somewhere else, and it wasn't how I would want to set things up. It was probably just left in that position from the night before when I'd been preparing things for the next day and hadn't really finished the setup." End of quote. What the production team heard was exactly what ended up on the record. No additional processing of effects were used during the mix. The music video for Money for Nothing was also on the cutting edge. I mean, it was shot with innovative computer animation. For that time, it was directed by progressive director Steve Barron, who also conducted the acclaimed New Tech music videos for a-ha's Take On Me. And Thomas Dolby's She Blinded Me With Science. MTV was super enthusiastic about the music video, of course, but there was a problem. Mark Knopfler was very anti-videos. All Knopfler wanted to do was a performance-style video with the band. He thought videos would destroy the purity of songwriters and musicians. Mark Knopfler was definitely not alone with his position. I mean, we've talked about it many times here, actually a couple days ago. But not taking advantage of certain MTV airplay would have been a huge mistake. Not only did MTV America heavily play the video for Money for Nothing, it was also the first video to be aired on MTV Europe when the network launched in August of 1987. And it was a staple on that channel as well. At the 1986 MTV Video Music Awards, the music video for Money for Nothing received 11 nominations. It won Video of the Year and Best Group Video. Money for Nothing won Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group with a Vocal and was nominated for Record of the Year and Song of the Year at the 1986 Grammy Awards. Man, that's back when the Grammy Awards were really cool.
We got some movies, color TV.
I mean, I remember being just knocked out by that video. We were all mesmerized by its creativity. Yeah, amazing. Anyway, speaking of creating, if you're in the need of a pair of glasses or sunglasses, go design your own at zenni.com. These are the ones I wear every day. You can do a virtual try-on before you buy. Check out our sponsor, Zenni. Now, the third single from Brothers in Arms was the Jovial ditty, Walk of Life, about a street musician busking in the subways of London, singing golden rock and roll oldies, Bebop-a-lula, Baby What I Say, and Mac the Knife. We've covered this one before in our 80s Hidden Gems. Dire Straits keyboardist Alan Clark performed that catchy, whistling, good time synthesizer intro of Walk of Life. Just captured a Cajun-flavored accordion feel that has been widely used, TV advertising, campaigns for Burger King, Walgreens. Former Dire Straits manager Ed Bicknell confided that after the band recorded Walk of Life, actually Mark Knopfler didn't want the track on the album because he didn't care for the drum tempo. Co-producer Neil Dorsman was also against including the song on Brothers in Arms, but eventually Bicknell and the band took a vote, and the majority ruled in favor of putting Walk of Life on the record. Glad they did. Such a great song. It always reminded me of like Born in the USA era of Springsteen. It just had that happy-go-lucky feel to it. The depth of Brothers in Arms was another reason, though, that the album attracted millions of loyalists. And when you laid down your good money back in those days to buy that record, you got just much more than the asking price. And you came away with a prized possession, a truly inspired mosaic of artistic expression, meticulously cultivated and passionately curated. Beyond the first three singles are the engrossing tracks Why Worry, Ride Across the River, One World, and your latest trick, shadowed by Randy Brecker's trumpet intro and his younger brother Michael Brecker on sax. Great song. There's a verse that Knopfler wrote in your latest trick that I have to point out for its powerful language. You played Robbery with Insolence, and I played the blues in 12 Bars Down Lover's Lane, and you never did have the intelligence to use the 12 keys hanging off from my chain. That passage is just a stark example of Knopfler's gifted oratory.
You never had the intelligence to use 12 keys hanging off my chain.
Brothers in Arms spent 9 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Top 200 album chart. It sold over 9 million units in America, 34 weeks at number 1 on the album chart in Australia as the biggest seller of 85, was certified 17 times platinum down under. It was the first album to be certified 10 times platinum in the UK, 8th best-selling of all time in the UK, and the top seller of 85. It was voted Best British Album at the 1987 Brit Awards, and it received the Juno Award for Best International Album in 1987. Dire Straits were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, but they've been pretty dormant since 1995. The band's 6th and final album, a studio album, On Every Street, was delivered in 91 and will likely be the group's swan song, unfortunately. Mark Knopfler continues to tour very successfully as a solo artist. But the inside word is that he has no interest in reforming Dire Straits. Regardless, at their zenith, Mark Knopfler and Dire Straits gave us their opus, Brothers in Arms, an album that will eternally illuminate our mesolimbic pathway as one of the true masterpieces of the rock and roll era. It's just one of those rare albums that we all owned a couple of times, and the parents and kids both dug. I remember buying the cassette tape. My dad already had the record. My dad and I listened to a lot of music together. I mean, from the 60s and 70s, a lot of that we could listen to together. The Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Bee Gees, Neil Diamond, Motown. But the modern music of 86, that list was shorter. My dad wasn't going to listen to Motley Crue or Def Leppard, and I wasn't going to be open to some of the new country music of that time that he was listening to. The few modern albums that we could listen to at that moment were like Billy Joel, The Bridge, Phil Collins, No Jacket Required, maybe Lionel Richie, Dancing on the Ceiling, and Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms. I'm sure it was the same for you. That's the reason I think the Dire Straits album was such a blockbuster. Mark Knopfler and his band spoke to everyone. I guess you could say that we felt a real kinship. We were essentially brothers in arms. Sorry, bad joke there. Thank you so much for watching. Leave us a comment about this amazing album and this band. To get the album on vinyl, which you should, click on our Amazon links. And if you want more content, click on our Patreon link below. Now, if this content resonates with you, join our community. We'd love to have you. We'd love to listen to you. Leave your comments. Subscribe below. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.